Thanks, man. This is Real Dad Society. I'm Reno Bester, and welcome to episode 6. I'm joined today by Seth Ferguson, all the way from Toronto in Canada. Seth is an 11-year real estate veteran. He's the host of a cable TV real estate show, the host of a real estate investing podcast, and has his first book titled Sell for More, published in 2018. As the president of the Alba Capital Group, he partners with investors to acquire and improve multifamily properties in key growth markets. Seth is a former professional and junior hockey referee, plays the bagpipes, and is a huge history nerd. But most of all, Seth is a dad to his son, Callan, that are 3 years old. Seth, thank you for being here and welcome to the Real Dad Society.
Thanks for having me on the show. And I just want to say, I think you have a very interesting niche, and I'm really looking forward to doing this interview.
Great. Yeah, yes, the feedback that we've got from our audience are great, and the dads are actually loving it. The main reason why we started this, or why I started this, is I actually feel a lot of dads don't have the voice in the outside world, and everyone suppresses their feelings. And I just want to create an environment where dads can actually talk to other dads about being a dad.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Most of our listeners are from South Africa. Have you ever been to South Africa, Seth?
Never, though. Everybody I've met from South Africa has always turned out to be an awesome person.
Okay, great. I've got some great topics lined up and can't wait to get into them. But just before we start, is there anything that you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself, your career, and your family?
Well, you got it. You mentioned the really embarrassing stuff, like playing the bagpipes and being the huge history nerd. So what kind of stuff are you looking for?
So obviously your kid is 3 years old now.
Yeah.
So you mentioned offline to me that you are divorced. So just give us a bit of history on that and how you're managing the single dad thing.
Yeah. So the divorce was interesting. Well, we weren't even married. I guess you could consider us common law, and I know common law changes depending on the state, province, or country you're in.
Yeah.
But we were together, living together. We owned property together, and we had Callan. But you know, the courts in Ontario treat us like a married couple, even though we were never married. So my ex-partner ended up wiping out our bank accounts, changing the locks on the house, stealing the car, and basically left me with nothing. So I had to start my life all over again. That was interesting. That was an interesting experience, especially with Callan, because you have this huge firestorm happening in your life on one side, but then you want to insulate him from that on the other side. But even though he was only 2 years old at the time, you still see effects on it. Like, kids are smart. They know what's going on. So I think one of the most heartbreaking things about the whole situation, I don't care that she stole the money. I don't care she took the house, like, whatever. The heartbreaking thing for me was seeing the impact on my son. And I am very much aware that in the future, it will have a serious impact on him. So, I carry an immense amount of guilt for that, because I know that's going to impact his life forever.
Yeah. And how old was Callan when your wife decided to pack her bags, or ex-wife decided to pack her bags?
Yeah, he was 2 years old.
Okay.
So he was still pretty young. On one side, I guess it's a good thing that he was young, because I know I've spoken with a lot of people whose parents split up when they were older and they took it really hard. Hopefully he won't remember very much. But I know, even at his young age, he still knows what's going on. He can feel it. He acts a little bit differently. If he knows, there was a point in time where he wasn't with me, as much as I would like. And, he would hide in the closet, hide his shoes. When it was time to go, he would run up to his bed and pretend to be sleeping just to, prevent himself from leaving the house. So that was pretty challenging for me.
I can just imagine. And do you find that him being older now, that he asks you more questions about why did mommy leave and why you're not together with mommy or stuff like that?
No, he's not even at that stage yet. So he loves playing with cars, trains, dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That's his focus. He doesn't even really bring that up.
Yeah.
Or anything. His vocabulary is still limited. He's turning 3 in 2 months, so he's still 2 and a bit.
Right.
So it's not really there yet. But I think that's one of the things. Anybody who has a young child who's in that separated situation, I think about how will I approach it when the questions do come. On one side, you want to be very open, I think, so your child doesn't have the feeling that you're hiding things from them. But on the flip side, you don't want to spill everything because it's not really their problem. So I don't think there's a perfect way. This is my first time going through this. So I guess I'll learn through trial and error.
Definitely. And maybe there's a future guest of mine that can provide you with some insights in the future.
Yeah, well, this is why this is great, because I know most guys don't really talk about this stuff when they're out and about. So I think having people discuss these really important things that maybe are a little more sensitive, I think this is great.
Yeah, and obviously this was a very challenging time for you. Basically, you started your whole life over. How did you keep yourself in a positive frame of mind in and around your son's life?
Yeah, well, I would say the first 3 days were not positive at all.
Okay.
Those were pretty dark days. But then I realized I had 2 ways to go. It's like you're in a fork in the road. You can let it ruin your life, and some people, they choose that path, or others, you can make it the best thing that ever happened to you. And with my show, I'm able to interact with very successful people. All of the people performing at the highest level have all hit rock bottom at some point. They just turned it into the best thing that ever happened to them. So that's what I'm trying to do with this. And it's been I think experiencing that deep pain and the distress has made me a better person, because there's a fire now that is smoldering in your belly that wasn't there before. And I think it gives you a chip on your shoulder. So I'm a lot more focused and direct with what I'm doing. And I almost wish, having been through that experience now, I wish it would have happened to me when I was younger, because I would have been maybe a lot more driven. Not that I wasn't driven before, but I think this has just really honed the sword's edge, if you will, and maybe that much more effective.
Okay. And how do you and your ex-wife split up the time that you spent with your child, with Cannon, or how do you guys work that out?
Yeah, that was a bone of contention for a long time. The night she took the money, she told me I would never see my son again, and took steps to fight me when I was trying to get at least a 50-50 arrangement done. So that was taken care of about a month ago. That's when things finally straightened out. But it had been 3/4 of a year where I was not seeing him as much as I would have liked to. She obviously had him more, and so that was challenging. Right now, where things are at, I think we found where it's going to stay, but you never really know. With when you're dealing with mental health issues, it's like you're standing on sand and it's always shifting. Yeah. So you never really know where things will go. So you just have to be prepared to, adapt and pivot as things come your way.
And do you have a support structure around you that guide you through this whole experience?
Yeah, I would say my mother's been really good with it. My father as well. Uh, but I think the biggest support you can give yourself is yourself.
Yeah.
I made sure I reached out, and I was seeing a therapist person, going there every couple of weeks, just talking about it, because I found it's more helpful to talk to almost a stranger who's trained in that kind of stuff, because you don't feel self-conscious, because you will never see them in your day-to-day life. So I found that the most helpful thing. And I know, what I found just seeing other people that have been affected by this stuff, lots of times people reach for outside things to help them through it. I've just learned going through it, the most important thing is to look within yourself to get through it. You can't rely on external forces to pull you through.
Yeah.
You have to pull yourself through.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true. So with you being a real estate investor, obviously you were working quite long hours. How do you manage to spend quality time with Galen? And how do you manage the time at the office and time that you spend with him?
Well, I think based on the schedule now, I see Callan about half the time. So the other half, I just work nonstop, and I'm constantly busy. When he's with me, I'll take him to swimming lessons. We'll do that. We'll do other activities. So I really try and structure my days. So my work heavy days are when he's not with me.
Okay.
So then when he does come over, we can do the fun stuff, run around, pretend to be dinosaurs, and do all that sort of thing. All those sorts of things. But I do get phone calls. I do have to work when he's here. I do, and I think not being with your son all the time makes you realize how precious that time really is. And, there is a certain amount of, I guess, guilt if you do have to do some work when he's there. Obviously he's fine. He loves playing with his cars and stuff, but, as a father, you want to be there playing with them. And so it's almost like there's a push-pull happening where you'd like to be there, but you really have to do the work. But if you don't do the work, you can't be there for him. So it's finding that balance.
And what would you say is the number one responsibility that of any dad in your situation? How do you think to any advice that you can give how to manage the situation and making sure that you are active in your child's life?
Oh, well, I would say number one, if you're put in that situation, you have to do everything you can to fight for your right to see your child. People will create false stories about abuse. They will say whatever they have to say. They will make up so many lies and just try to turn you into the worst person in the world, just to use a child to hurt you. So the gloves come off at that point, because these decisions are permanent. So you have to do everything in your power to fight for your ability to be a part in your son's life. I know lots of other people where they've just been steamrolled by the system, and one of them will never see his son again. And that is a shame. But that is the reality of it. So you have to do everything you can to fight for that.
I definitely agree with you. So obviously, as a businessman and an entrepreneur and a real estate investor, you obviously have some good values in your business and in your personal life. What are that values that you live by and try to strive for?
Well, I think the main, if I had to think about one quality I would like, it would be excellence. I am a person who's always striving towards excellence. And I think that has a lot of good side effects from it. So you have the dedication, you have the passion, all that stuff, but that all kind of melds together into that excellence quality. And I think that's one thing that I would like to show my son. And, I have all these big goals. I'm doing all these big things, not really to, I want to be able to lead by example for my son as he gets older. So it's one thing to say, tell my son one thing, being like, hey, listen, you should do this. I think it's a totally different thing to be able to show him and have him, see you doing these things. Because I know for myself, once you get speaking with the right people and you start opening up your mind, you can accomplish so much more, way more than you thought possible before. And it's just how you think about yourself, how you think about the asset you're dealing with, how you think about business. So I want to accomplish all these great things so my son, as he grows up, can be involved with it, so he can see things with an open mind and really realize that the only person holding you back is yourself.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily exposed to the amazing world of real estate investing as I was growing up. When you think back when you're growing up, if somebody's telling you things all the time, what you should be doing, you don't really listen. But if you can see things and see the results, I think that's a lot more impactful.
No, definitely. And obviously with those values and the example that you want to lead by, obviously your son is not at an age yet where it plays such a big role. But how do you see the future? What do you want to involve him in? How do you want to be that good example?
Yeah, actually, I've stolen this from a few of the guests I've had on my show. Some of them set up trusts. So let's say their child is 10 years old. They're able to start making decisions about the trust. So they'll have mini board meetings where it's, the parent and then the children, and they'll have votes. They'll look over all the stuff. The decisions aren't groundbreaking, but it does get the child involved in realizing what goes in, the value of real estate, how you structure things. And it really gets them making decisions so they take ownership of it. And, as they get older, they're able to become more and more involved. Whether or not they want to become a real estate investor, that's not the point. Even if they want to be, let's say, a brain surgeon, real estate is still a very important part of having a solid portfolio. So they can go, explore their dreams, but they will still have a very good foundation of real estate investing, and that's their retirement, that's their safety net. And that's what's, if they are a brain surgeon, real estate will allow them all those tax benefits, so they're not paying, 6 figures in taxes every year.
No, that's very true. That takes me to the next topic. The school system, obviously in South Africa and worldwide, are broken. So as a real estate investor, you obviously didn't learn your trade at or in school. So what do you think about the school system currently that's going on in America, Canada, worldwide? What can we do to better it, and what can governments do to better equip children for life after school?
Yeah, I'm very glad you brought up this topic. So I had a long discussion with this on another show. So my feeling is, it's not the government's job to educate my son. That falls on to me, because you're not going to learn very much in sitting in a classroom. Whatever, learn how to spell, learn how to do math. You're going to forget most of it when you're out in the real world anyway. It's my job to expose my son to opportunities and expose my son to different ways of thinking and how to do things. That's my job. The real world, the thing about the school system is you're so insulated you're so insulated in this environment that has no, it's not even like the real world. It's like its own little bubble. And then you have, most of the time the teachers teaching in that bubble, they worked up their way through the system and then went back right into the bubble. So there's no, and this is the thing. So lots of people say, oh, it's about time we started teaching kids about money.
Nice.
The people who should be teaching kids about money are not teaching in schools. So they're actually out there doing things in the real world. So it's not, it's up to me to expose my son to those people, expose them to how they think, but I'm not going to rely on the government to do that for me. I know you have to go and graduate high school. That's fine. He can go and do that. But after that, it's up to me to instill values in him as he gets older that will force him and push him to go beyond that. Because, you go through school, what do you end up with? A piece of paper that means nothing.
Exactly.
And all the really successful people out there, they're thinking about life in a creative way. School teaches you to think like everybody else. If you're being average, you will never succeed. Like, it doesn't make sense. You have to think about things differently. You can't go with the masses. So I'm going off on a bit of a rant.
But it's definitely true.
Yeah.
So do you think that you would probably homeschool your child, or is that not a possibility for you? And how big is homeschooling in your country?
No, I think I wouldn't want to homeschool him. The reason is, one, as a single parent, it would be very challenging. Could I do a better job? Most likely. But I think, though, when you are in school, besides the education size, you learn about social interactions. And, the scary thing that you realize is once you're out of school is the people basically running our countries and running the big companies, they're all personality types that we saw in high school. Yeah. So it's a little scary once you realize that people don't change too much. Once you hit high school, you are basically the type of person you will be. And that can be scary. But I think it's important for him to see that and experience that social dynamic, just because I found lots of people who I've interacted with who were homeschooled, they may not have that social that social adeptness to the same level, because they're not socializing every day. They're at home, and it's almost like sheltered in another bubble, if you know what I mean.
No, definitely. And obviously with you, as you said, now you're looking to set up a trust and getting your son involved in some decision making and stuff.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for parents that owns a business to introduce their kids to that business at an early age? And obviously that will give them the opportunity to see if it is something that they would like to do afterwards, and just get a feeling of how everything works and what that is actually doing.
Yeah, I think that the value of money and how you can leverage debt and the machinations of business, I think those are the most important qualities to pass on. I don't, like I said, let's say I was a printer. I don't care if my son becomes a printer. I don't care if my son becomes an architect. But it's how you think about business, how you think about money, how you have the exchange of value. Those are the lessons that are really important. And I think the sooner those lessons can be instilled in a child, the better. Growing up, my father, he would bring me to work. He owned like a graphic design kind of company. He would bring me into work. I think I was maybe 10 years old for a couple weeks in the summer just to get a feel of that. And I think anybody who has a business that they own should do that, but not only concentrate on, this is the product we're selling, but, the theory behind it, this is why we're able to sell this product at this price. This is where we're positioned, and start asking questions of the child. If you were, this is a problem we are experiencing today. How would you solve this problem? Yeah. And really get them to, contribute answers and get that discussion going. 2 weeks doing that is way more powerful than sitting in school for 12 years.
Definitely. And where did you actually learn your trade, Seth?
In real estate. So I started off selling real estate. So I was a real estate broker selling houses. Then I got into the investment side. A lot of on the investment side initially when I got started was reading books, listening to talks. I found people that were performing at a very high level, so I started just absorbing everything they were giving out. But I think that the main thing is when you're looking to really scale up your business is find somebody 10 steps ahead of you. And replicate exactly what they're doing. Because it's not rocket scientists. Lots of entrepreneurs like to reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. Somebody has already forged that path, ahead of you. Just find somebody 10 steps ahead and replicate every single thing that they've done. Your personality will be different, but the steps are proven. That person is way ahead. Just copy it. Just replicate those systems.
No, that's definitely true. Previously, you mentioned, and as I introduced you, you were a former hockey referee. So you played a lot of sports at school level?
Not at the school level, but outside of school. Hockey isn't very strong in Canada in the school system.
Okay.
It's mainly outside. It's very different from in the United States, where you have lots of high school sports that are very popular. So I did that. I realized that I was not going to make it much farther playing hockey. So then I transitioned to refereeing, and I went way far. I did some international games. I did a couple national championships. Did some pro hockey. So that was a lot of fun. And I wish I could go back in time and relive those years. It was a blast.
Yeah. And in your opinion, how important do you think is the role that sports play in the development of our kids in an early age?
Huge. That competitive nature, that competitive drive, I think is paramount in anybody. Yeah. I think now it's people make jokes about it where everybody gets a participation award.
Yeah.
And nobody wins. But unfortunately, life is not like that. There is one winner. Everybody else loses. And I think sport is a very good way of getting kids introduced to that, because the world doesn't care about you. Nobody really cares. The world cares about what you can do for that, and then in exchange, if you can bring value, you will in turn receive value on your end, but you have to give value first. So sport is a great way, not only teamwork, but you realize, that sometimes teams can be dysfunctional. Why teams don't work, what makes a good team, what makes you trust somebody, what makes you trust your winger, or what makes you trust your defense behind you, whereas, what doesn't make you trust the people, playing on your team. All those things, the dedication factor, showing up every time for practice, preparation, how do you prepare yourself for games? All that stuff is so important.
Yeah, very true. And what is the big sports in Canada that the children can actually do? You say they can't do it in school. Do you have like club structures, or how do they play?
Yeah. So, hockey is obviously the most popular sport in Canada right now. Soccer is or football.
When you say hockey, it's ice hockey.
Ice hockey, yeah.
Okay.
Ice hockey, yeah. I would say that's like our national sport. So almost everybody plays it. Yeah. But it's outside of the school system. I would say most of the time. So you have these clubs that bring kids through, and then they will graduate to junior hockey, then some pro if they're lucky enough.
Okay, nice. And is Callan currently doing any sports, or is there any sports for young children? I know he's still young, but is there something that in any way that you can introduce ball sports to him?
Well, next year, he has a late birthday, so he can't start this year, but he'll start next year. But, I do take him out. We go skating together. We're working on the skating skills and all of that. So he's got another year to go, and then he'll be able to start doing all that stuff.
And then obviously that he will be introduced to that at club level then, or do they present that at his daycare or something like that?
Yeah, so it'll be, it'll be on probably 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning. All the little kids go out on the ice. And, one of the things just with my hockey experience, I'm really looking forward to coaching and doing all of that stuff and really giving back to the kids. I actually coached some kids hockey a few years ago. Really loved that experience. So I can't wait to do that with Callan.
I'm glad you're mentioning that now, because I was just to say is you're getting yourself in a bee nest, if I can say it like that, because parents can be very nasty. And how did you cope with that experience of being a coach of a hockey team actually, and with all the parents, not the kids? The kids are very hard to deal with.
Yeah, well, luckily when I was coaching, the kids were like 4 years old, so it wasn't too bad. Okay. But I know when I was going through the kids hockey system when I was refereeing, working myself up, It was disgusting, just disgusting. And, I would never go back to doing minor sports, like, with the kids. I would never do that again because, the funny thing is the people who make the biggest scenes and who are the most abusive, they have zero knowledge of the sport. They probably never even played the sport. They're most of the time they're 300 pounds. So, and what I found is that the people who are the most knowledgeable, so maybe they played pro at some point. Those are the people that are usually the most down to earth and relaxed because they understand the sport, they understand the process. So I don't, I think that's human nature. Many people where they don't have any business giving an opinion, they still feel the need to, because it makes them feel good. I don't think we can get away from it, but I would, now I mentor and coach young referees starting out. And so I'll go watch their games, give them tips and pointers and support, but sitting up in the stands, it's pretty sick. So it's, yeah. So sometimes you feel like going over and shaking somebody.
It's really bad. Yeah. It's really bad. Yeah. And how do you plan? Obviously, you've been in the circles now and you know what to expect. But how do you plan to help Callan with it? Because it's easy for guys shouting from the stands negative and bad stuff to him. And that can affect the child when he's 6 or 7, 8 year olds. And for sure. He maybe loses his taste in hockey or in any sport that he's partaking in. So what's your plans for that?
Well, I think it's all about approaching it in a healthy way. I know when I decided to pack in hockey, it felt like it was taking over my life because, when you're playing at a high level, you're doing it every single day. And, kids should have other interests. Like you shouldn't have them just focusing on one thing. It's okay to be competitive, but you have to have other facets of your life to make a well-rounded person. So how will I deal with that? Probably tell a few people off along the way, but I'd really like to get involved on the coaching side, just because I know I can do a very competent job and I have a lot of knowledge based on what I've done in the sport. So I'd like to stay involved that way, and not only to help Callan but help all the kids, because got 20 kids on a team. I think having somebody who's been through the system, who's seen the sport at a professional level, they'll be able to impart knowledge and tips and all that stuff down to the kids.
Okay. Obviously, with you and your wife separated, how do you guys actually stay on the same page? Because all of this are lying in front of you. That's all the stuff that's going to challenge your parenting style and how you approach these things. So how do you currently stay on the same page regarding the parenting style and the things that you want to carry over to Callan?
There is no same page.
Is it?
There is, and that makes it so frustrating. But one of the things I had to keep in mind is, when you're dealing with somebody with like a borderline personality disorder, you can't, there is no negotiating with them, that there is no compromise. You almost have to do a hard cutoff and just focus on your own life. So that's been challenging, toilet training of all things, my son's almost 3. I took the time, to have him toilet trained. So when he comes to my house, no issues at all. On the reverse side, goes back to see his mom, he's back in diapers. She feeds him a baby bottle. He's almost 3 years old, but you just have the way she perceives the world and the way she sees things and thinks about things are totally different. And, you just have to cut it off, not worry about it. I think a lot of people I've spoken with, they've been separated, but there's no mental health issues. That makes it a lot easier. Yeah. But in this case, it's pretty extreme. So you just have to focus on yourself, do the best thing I can do. And I can't change other people. And it is what it is. I will just have to keep an eye out as Callan gets older to make sure the abuse that comes with the borderline personality, the emotional abuse, I'll have to pay very close attention to make sure that isn't focused on him. just because it can be pretty, it can be pretty ruthless.
That's about actually my next question is, with you dealing with this, aren't you scared to leave him in her care at this age? And obviously the first, all the parenting books and stuff that you can read, people tell you that the first 7 years of a child is very important. And don't you think that effect may have some negative effects later on, and the role that she currently plays?
Oh, 100%. But can I do anything about it? I can't. I can't. Even if I go to court and say, hey, listen, this is what a professional has said, and this is the determination this professional has made, and these are the concerns this mental health professional has. Like, I'm a guy. The system is written against me, and there would have to be signs of physical abuse and mistreatment, all that kind of stuff for the court to even consider that. A lot of this process has forced me to realize to focus on what you can change. Yeah. If you can't change it, you can't spend time worrying about it, because you're just going to be miserable. So I have to be cognizant of what happens as he grows older. I'll just have to be make it a point of instilling the important values that have made me successful. What she does on her end, that's fine. Whatever, I'll deal with it. But you just roll with the punches. That's all you can do.
Yeah. And with all that negative stuff out of the way, what is the proudest moment in your fatherhood journey thus far that you've experienced with Kiddo?
Oh boy. I would say holding him for the first time as soon as he was born. That was a life-changing experience. That was my world changed in an instant. So that was, I will never forget that moment. Other ones, him walking for the first time, he was very proud of himself. Kids at that age, they accomplish new things so often. It's almost true. Like every couple weeks that there's something new that he's doing. But yeah, I'd say the most impactful moment of my life was holding him for the first time.
And can you explain that emotion and feelings you felt when you held him the first time?
Oh, it was crazy. So two things went through my mind at the same time. So the first thing was, when you're holding your child, you realize how far along your own life cycle you are. So, you realize that, hey, you're like halfway through your life now, because now you've got this little baby coming into the world. So you're kind of faced with your own mortality. And I never, as a young guy, you never think about it.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, I had this instantly, you have this intense urge and need to become a better person and do better, not for yourself, but for your son. Before that, I was driven, I was motivated, I was successful, but I was doing it for me. Being motivated to succeed for somebody else, I think that's a far stronger emotion. And I think on me, at least, it's had a far greater impact. So that has to be the most defining. I would say holding my son and also going through that separation, those are the two biggest defining moments of my life so far.
And what legacy do you want to leave, Kellen, when you're not here one day?
I would say, well, I do want to be able to leave a financial legacy of cash producing assets and all of that stuff. But I think most important, the legacy of how to think. How to think about opportunities, how to think about yourself, how to think about goals, how to think big. I think that's the most impactful lesson or legacy I can pass on to him. And that's going to be a lifelong legacy. I'm going to be I'm already starting to do that with him, in terms of, not when he's confronted with a scary situation, you don't act scared, you assess it and then you push him to power through it. I'm already starting to do that, but as he gets older, I want to start passing on what I've learned from all these other very successful people. just how to think. I think that's the most powerful thing somebody can pass on.
Definitely. And for any fathers out there that's really struggling and not feeling they're getting this dad thing right, what advice do you have for them?
Oh boy. Well, I don't think you can ever get it right. As hard as you try, there's always, I'm trying my very best to be the best father I can be, but there's external circumstances that are always throwing wrenches in things. You can't worry about it.
No.
One thing that I found helpful for me is you look at the experience you had with your father and, was it good? Was it bad? The thing that's really driving me is I don't want Callan to grow up and feel disappointment once he realizes the real person I am, because every child grows up and then they realize, then they get to see their parents for who they really are, not as child to parent, but as, almost like peers. Once that happens, I don't want Callan to lose that esteem or that inspiration for me. I want him to be like, you know what, that's my dad. He did a solid job. And it would absolutely crush me if once we hit that point, if he was disappointed.
No, that's very true. And I see there's a lot of books behind you. Is it just real estate investing books, or is there any fatherhood books that you've read that helped you in your fatherhood journey or in your being a dad that you can recommend to us?
I can't say I have ever read a fatherhood book.
Okay.
However, there are many, many good books on business, on life, on thinking that have so many similarities or so many synergies with fatherhood. You look at Think and Grow Rich. You look at Rich Dad, Poor Dad. These are all dynamics with how people interact, with how your mind thinks. Those are all lessons you can apply not only to business, but how to be a good father. The book, how to win friends and influence people. That's the key to social dynamics. These are things that as a father, I'm now teaching my son, not me telling him, but from him watching me. So, kids are like a sponge. They will watch everything you do. So you have to be very cognizant of what you're doing with your own actions, because actions speak louder than words. Yeah. You can say, son, don't do that. But if you're doing that yourself, and that goes into, maintaining physical fitness, always working to expand your mind. If you're sitting on the couch eating, chips every day, chances are, this is why you see 400-pound people with 200-pound children who are 9 years old, because kids will do what they see their parents doing. So it's like, like I said, when I was holding my son, I felt the need to be a better person. You really do need to be a better person, because you have somebody watching you 24/7, emulating you, all that kind of stuff. So any books that will, teach you about business, about thinking, about goal setting, those have been very impactful, not only for me and my business, but, those have given me lessons to pass on to my son.
Okay. And what scares you as a father?
Well, I would say disappointing my son. Okay. That would be one. And then to tell a little bit of a story, there was a period during the separation where I had no idea where my son was. And I thought that he would be physically harmed by the mother, just because she had said that she was going to absolutely destroy and ruin my life. I ended up having a panic attack and ended up on the floor of this house I was looking at. And I legitimately thought I was dying on the floor. Like you have, like your left side goes all numb. You can't move. You stop breathing. And it was interesting, about the thoughts that go through your mind at that point. And it was all guilt about leaving my son too soon without being able to be there and pass on things to him. That was the only thing I could think about, just an immense sense of guilt about leaving my son. So I think that is another fear, because I lived through it. Obviously, I had never experienced a panic attack before, and I guess it was a pretty big one.
Yeah.
But having lived through those thoughts, I do not want to end up. Let's say I get hit by a bus, 5 years from now. I would hate experiencing that thought of guilt and regret. So I want to consistently always pass along value to my son, even though he's little. Every day I want to start giving him things. So whenever that time does come, hopefully a long ways from now, I'm not, I would hate dying with that thought in my head.
Okay. And looking to the future, what excites Seth Ferguson?
Oh, lots of stuff. I am on the rebound right now with my business. Lots of big things happening. My dreams are 10 times bigger than they were before. The people I'm interacting with, the people I'm speaking with, the people I'm partnering with are just amazing, successful people. And I'm so excited to have my son live in an environment like that with all these people who don't think small, who are always thinking bigger and better. I think it's just going to be the next 10, 20 years are just going to be amazing. There will be ups and downs, but I just think back to where my life was before, dealing with those issues and stuff like that in the relationship to where I am now. It's like night and day.
Yeah. And this is just a question that came to mind now. Obviously, the South African economy is not doing great. We're in a bit of a panic on this side. Is there any way that guys can invest in Canada property or in any way? Or that you
absolutely. There are many structures that allow for international money to invest in deals. For instance, I'm hunting real estate in the States.
Okay.
Right now, we are focusing on Texas. We have there's Chinese money coming in, there's Canadian money coming in, lots of different currencies. You will want to speak with a accountant familiar with the tax laws and the tax treaties between those two countries. But yeah, money flows across borders every day, and there's some really good opportunities right now in that multifamily space. So the apartment buildings that we're going after.
Okay. Seth, but from me and the Real Dad Society, I just want to say thank you for your time. You've got a very positive outlook on life, taking in account what happened to you and how everything panned out. But I'm thinking you're doing a very, very good job, not just raising your child, but also in your business and your real estate. So thank you so much. And I think there's definitely that's going to be out there that's going to enjoy this message and what you shared with us today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great stuff. Chat soon.